apologize for the slight delays getting back into it, but we are going to try and make sure that everything looks as nice as possible, as best as possible. And as we do that, looking through this draft, we try and make sure that Mark's cam's all fixed, nice ship shape and shiny. We can see that there are some slight deviations from the bans, noticeably that we've now got Rakan added to the ban table, with Poppy and Vi taking their place on blue side here. We've now got a Gwen first pick locked in for Xia, and this is a player as well that coming into split number 2, as a broadcast team, we were trying to be excited about Xia, and looking at him as a player that actually might have been one of the key pieces of FPX. As the season developed, it turned definitely more into Shadow and into Jwei, but this is a player who, of those carries, we were actually the most excited for.
Especially when you look back at Split 1, some of the brightest moments did come from Sheer and his carry top performances. But as you said, as the season progressed, it seemed to decline and star performances had to come elsewhere. BLG lock in, though, a very powerful bot lane duo setup in Lucian and Braum. We do have a couple of members on our broadcast team that have been very outspoken about blinding Braum way too soon in the draft. We'll see if that is something FPX can punish.
Yeah, and I think that importantly, looking at this, they take the Rakan away, which is typically one of those answers to the Braum, but there are still plenty of ranged bot lanes that you could look to take here, and looking at things like Karma, things like Bard, they do very well versus the Braum and can actually really punish how easy it is for this Lucian Braum lane to try and function. Instead though, for FPX, they're just going entire top side, very traditional from what we tend to see from the majority of our drafts. It's just them making sure that they can be getting all 3 top side picks out of the way. They'll happily default to slightly weaker picks in the rest of the map, and then knowing that they're going to have a couple of decent answers to this bot lane duo anyway.
Ooh, Jace. Not a champion that we see often compared to the days of tank Jace earlier on in the season, but it does pop up every now and then as an answer to some of these carry top lane matchups here. More than likely going to go into Ben's hands. I don't think we're going to be seeing a Knight Jace anytime soon. There are other control mages that can be used as an answer into the Aurora. But with that being said, Root, there's still a jungler yet to be locked in for BLG, and I imagine that is where some of the ban priorities are going to be for FPX.
Yeah, and noticeably for BLG as well, they're just taking away the AD carries away from JiaQi. Already with this very dive-centric setup, I'm a fan of taking away the center. Maybe Ezreal as well gets taken off the board as one of those safe AD carries to try and answer this Lucian Braum lane. Whereas BLG do look to be taking away some of those control mages in the mid lane. Victor bans suggest that they might be setting up for an Annie takeaway relatively early on, or rather not early on, they've already got their solo laners, but that they're just not happy with the range that the Victor can play at, and maybe other bad matchups for the Aurora. Typically, you don't see Sylas taken away in this situation, as you know, Sylas one of those picks that the Aurora can kind of dookie on in the laning phase. But I think that a Sylas pick for Knight actually has a lot of priority if he can sustain that laning phase.
Yeah. It's not bad to grab something like a Cyclone or a Between Worlds if you are the Sylas. Need to work. Probably not the most appeasing or the most appetizing ultimate to grab. Sejuani, though, that would have been a nice pickup for Shadow, as he did pick up his first MVP with BLG in last night's series against AL. BLG now cycling through the last few jungle options you can go for. Xin is still on the table, y'all, so that is a nice one to still pick up here, even after the final round of bans that FPX sent their way. I will say Rude BLG are still lacking strong engage. Braum is not engaged. He has good disengage. He's good picks, and if you're able to get to an objective first, you can damage melees pretty heavily.
You are correct. However, look at FPX's composition. Tell me what FPX wants to do. They're the ones going forward. BLG don't really need to do much engaging, because FPX are going to look to do that largely on their own terms. For BLG, what they're looking for is something that can sit and that can absorb engages quite well. I think that Braum does that very well. I think that actually Xin Zhao doesn't do that awfully, with the present guard able to buy a little bit of space for him. And yeah, FPX, I mean, they're just continuing to hammer down on this full engage style of competition. We've got 4 divers. I mean, if you're counting Aurora as well, we can probably just go all 5 champions want to do that diving and want to have that dive style. So FPX, they've got one track mind here. Their composition is an entirely sole identity. But the thing is that if they ever fall behind, doing that is going to cost them dearly, because they're going to have to engage into the 6-man roster of BLG plus Tibbers, through an Unbreakable, through all of the Braum shielding, and also through all of the disengage that a Lucian provides. As far as AD carries go dealing with dive, Lucian one of those better off ADs because he's got such easy access to those dashes.
The mobility will have to be something Elk needs to be an absolute expert on, because there's just so many threats that are trying to completely annihilate you. Kai'Sa's diving with the Killer Instinct, Aurora's flanking with Between Worlds, Wukong is stealthing in for a Cyclone, and Hell Sheer, if he can get a good teleport flank on. I mean, I don't need to say more about the possibilities of a Gwen flank and how disgusting that can be. I'm not gonna lie, Root, I'm a bit skeptical about the composition here from BLG, because it does really seem like this is going to be set up for the Elk show. You are just trying to make sure that this Annie can get some priority, look to play towards these side lanes, and snowball Bin on the Jace or Elk on the Lucian. And granted, this is the type of caliber of team that can pull it off. I'm just, you know, if it was any other roster, if it was any other matchup, I'd be way more concerned and be giving FPX the advantage when it comes to composition strength.
I will say that, yes, I think their ability to kill Elk or to kill a single backline member is quite high. They've got really good pick, and their team fight revolving around that top side, yeah, it's quite good. But also, I do think that Shadow can kind of go nuclear this game once again on the Xin Zhao if he's left untouched. Hey, man. You know? Oh.
And with that, the BLG Gios, who at least were confirmed to us from production, were the only ones being echoed in the arena. We are on the Rift for Game 2 between FPX and BLG. Nothing too fancy when it comes to the level 1 plays here, Rude. A lot of aggressive vision this time from FPX's side. They planted one on the blue buff as well as the Raptor camp. I want to start looking forward, though, at what FPX wants to do at some of these objective setups. Obviously, Dragons will be the first one spawning at 5 minutes, Grubs at 8 minutes. Which ones do FPX want to prioritize this game?
Hit level 6, those ones. Whichever ones you can do when you've got your ultimates available to you. I do think they've got really good pick with the Nautilus as well, and the power that will have versus the Kai'Sa, with the Kai'Sa is definitely pretty big. Has been with an E start here on the Jace.
Lot of trading between Sheer and Bin already, but Bin in the end seeming to at least win the health trade war. It is Adorn Shield and Resolve Runes from Sheer, so more than likely Second Wind will at least give him the sustain necessary to match that of Bin's, whereas he went for Dorn's Blade, so Bin is going to have to work a little bit more to get that how should I say, the
attrition. He's gonna have to work harder to win the war of attrition. Yeah.
Yes.
Nice play down on this bot side though by BLG. That Unbreakable we're getting to see, you know, already have some really good value in the 2 versus 2. Now Kai'Sa Nautilus, a very infamous duo. Same to be said for Lucian Braum though. I think that the important part is that if the Nautilus ever is engaging first, it's typically going to be a struggle for the Nautilus, but if they are able to re-engage onto Elk, who's already used a dash forward maybe, then that's an opportunity where you could see FPX come out on top. For the win condition of this game is IYY. Oh no.
Oh, that is a very aggressive start from IYY, just going from his own red buff and immediately crossing into BLG's red quadrant. Now, he does have the push from the Aurora, which is why he's going for this in the first place. Smites are available for both junglers, but Shadow, with the quick finger, is able to secure his own red buff, and IYY is just going to be left feeling silly, knowing that he wasted time getting nothing out of that trade.
Yeah, that's one of those situations where, okay, I know I've got mid prio, I've got top prio as well, but if neither of those 2 lanes end up coming to help you, what's the point?
Oh, and nicely done by Bin with the E flash punch Sheer right back into Shadow's waning arms. He doesn't even need to use flash. It is first blood for BLG.
Yeah, and a great little timer there by Shadow. I mean, honestly, by Sheer, probably should have expected that. You've just seen your jungler contest enemy topside red buff with 20 CS now. He's going to take Krugs and then he's going to be free to go on the map. And like I say, that's just a little bit unforgivable for me, as now looking for a bot lane fight.
TP coming from Bin, I believe. So now they're getting the proactive lane swap. Bin can easily come on over and crash this wave into JiaQi and Jwei, making it so that their lane swap is, if they want it to happen, it's going to be a little bit later, since this does delay that overall timer. And once again, Roodood, we're seeing just better early game map play from BLG over the likes of FPX.
Yeah, and you can see Shadow already making his move. It looked like he was going for the Raptor steal, but actually has an opportunity to wrap in on Care here in the mid lane.
Oh, flash attempt from Knight. Ah, that was, that's a...
Look away, look away.
One.
Everybody look away.
It's okay, Knight. You know what?
That's not my
W
goat.
flash is, so
that was
this
dead,
is why we lead with
unfortunately.
Q flash. Yeah. Q flash. Point and click guaranteed, baby.
Yeah, let's flash it. Use those point and click spells, and then we can follow up with the rest of our kit. I mean, Care gets to hop away there, and that's about it. It means that actually Knight now in a bit of a predicament, I will say. Level 6 about to come through for Care. He's about half a level away from that, and now the Annie with no flash in the mid lane and immobile mage as well. Might struggle on that timer where IYY can maybe go for a gank, where Care can move into that mid lane and hopefully try to take down his counterpart. We'll have to see whether or not that gets punished, and I think that is going to be FPX's way to try and generate an advantage in this game, because so far they've struggled quite significantly with that.
I'm curious about FPX's decision to not match the lane swap. I guess that this is them saying, well, you know what, if they are proactively trying to swap the Lucian and Braum away from the Kai'Sa lane, we're going to take this opportunity to try and farm as much safely for JiaQi's Kai'Sa and just say, sorry, Sherry, you kind of have to suck it up.
Yeah, and I think that with the Nautilus being up there as well, it actually doesn't make it too difficult for Xia.
Sure.
The main part of this is actually that the Kai'Sa is beginning to get solo XP and is going to be very accelerated on that experience game, whereas Xia, who's just hopped forward, no W now.
And still no flash available. Shadow can easily jump on top of him. IYY's here for the counter gank, but it just might be a little too late. Yes, they could maybe trade one back onto On as it comes at the cost of IYY's flash, but Shadow is still so strong in the early game against the Wukong. No Cyclone available, no CC, and Shadow and L can easily just gun him down. Jwei will be able to make an escape with that dredge line, but still overall victory for BLG.
Yeah, now massive wave for Elk to farm, to push in under the turret as well. Looks like he's going to be able to split this between himself and Shadow. And that's a massive experience advantage once again being generated for the jungler of BLG, as Shadow sort of, again, resetting himself on this BLG roster as potentially the missing piece that they've been looking for this entire time. A series win yesterday against anyone's legend, our reigning LPL champions, now coming into a series versus FPX where he's once again having a bit of a performance where he's looking to kind of kingdom IYY and sort of really make FPX regret that losing him in the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, this is the jungler that stepped up from FPX's LDL roster, and Shadow was the former jungler for FPX sitting in front of him, and now we get a chance to see why in full effect. It is about 30 seconds before grubs spawn. Neither BLG or FPX have even made a showing or an inclination to the first dragon of the game, so BLG just trying to play for the strength and farm of all lanes, including Shadow, because taking dragons does take quite a bit of a time investment away from your camps, especially if they're always still on cycle, and because Shadow has made so many ganks across the map, that has just been the focus and the priority, and I imagine that BLG will want to ensure that they can show full strength at this grub pit to make sure that FPX doesn't get anything in return.
Yeah, so 4 people, it looks like, already moving up for FPX. You can see that mid lane's going to be able to get pushed out by Care, and already seeing IYY make his way up to this top side.
Oh, they're calling it
BLG
off.
looking to freeze that top wave. It does look like you've mentioned here that the play for the grub's not necessarily an important one. They were quite happy to deny JiaQi as much gold as possible. And that is something that they've been successful in. I will say there was, like I say, that frozen wave on that top side. Now a wave that's been denied under that turret while JiaQi goes to look for helping those grubs. And now the Kai'Sa, in absolute poverty land right now, looking at those items, right? Like, this is looking to be a Yuntel start for the Kai'Sa. Not something that we typically see. But those are the the brokey items, for lack of a better word. We've got a slingshot and we've got a longsword. Where's my BF sword, you know?
You have told me tales about if you go back to base and you're walking back with a slingshot, it's not a feels-good moment, and Care might not be in a feels-good moment depending on if this Winter's Bite does tag him and he has to flash the wind, becomes lightning. Otherwise, that surely would have been a kill setup for BLG.
Yeah, you get stunned and knocked up at the same time with this Braum Xin Zhao combo. Oh. Hold on.
Turning it back around on a knight. Nicely done by Care. Okay! Let's go!
A little solo bellissimo here from our friend in the mid lane as Care stepping up again and finally here making a little bit of a move. That punish of no flash from Knight finally comes through, reaps its rewards, and Knight there just a little bit too overzealous with his positioning. Gets caught out, gets taken down by a couple of good skill shots.
And listen, we're not expecting FPX, you know, to go the full distance in this split 3. However, if Care is able to find moments where he can solo kill the likes of Knight in these matchups here, that's the small rays of hope that FPX fans want to see, especially from a player that has been so long tenured with FPX. You have been wanting to see levels of progression, ways for him to step up. It's just one solo kill, but if he can continue to leverage this advantage, we might be cooking this game, Rood.
Yeah, and it'll give them a win condition as well that previously might have been a little bit lacking. So far, their composition is all about dive, and I mean, I'm looking at the gold disadvantage that they're falling behind and that they're going to have to try and do that versus a Braum, and that really does fill me with a little bit of anxiety for this FPX composition. Like, how are they going to be able to do that successfully if, you know, their comp really doesn't have an advantage to work around? But if they can use the Aurora, if they can use Care to be the difference maker, maybe there's a chance for them just yet, Raafaa.
Yep. He's already got Merc Treads, just respecting the amount of CC that is available at BLG's disposal, and he just needs that extra bit of tenacity as well as magic resistance for the burst damage. Sheer, though, might be in a world of trouble here as a 3-man dive is incoming.
Clear the wave!
He uses
Clear the wave!
to clear the wave, but BLG are going to continue the dive anyway, and Knight can easily tank it up with the tower and Tibbers, and BLG pull off another kill on Sheer.
Yeah, and this is the sort of 4th or 5th time in this series that they've been able to find Sheer isolated and sideways.
Oh, no!
Oh dear, 1Q and dead. Okay, I mean, that's the power of Lucian Braum right there, and I love to see that Elka and On were actually willing to go for that. JiaQi really recognizing the burst potential of an, at the time, 2-0 Lucian.
Well, BLG, they didn't get the first 3 grubs, but they didn't even need the first 3 grubs to secure the first brick of the game. And they already got the feats of warfare with the first 3 kills around the 6-5 minute mark, so that does give them the overall feats of strength for the empowered tier 2 boots as well as access to the tier 3 boots. So that's going to be nice for BLG to play around, as the next objective is going to be in about 3 minutes time for both Rift Herald and Dragon. And when I'm looking at these 1-item spikes, Rood, I imagine that BLG across the board are going to be hitting those 1-item spikes fairly soon. The only player, as I say that, Trinity Force has just been picked up by IYY, and what I imagine will be a Leandries completed by Care. Those are the 2 carries you have to look at on the side of FPX to try and see if they can turn things around.
Yeah, I mean, those are some big circles, right? And hopefully they'll be enough to pay their way through these team fights. I think that once again, this FPX composition, it picks very well. If a target steps forward and is slightly out of position, FPX should be able to burst it down and find a quick pick in that regard. But BLG have got such great long-standing team fight capability. I think that between Annie and between the safety that Illusion should have in these fights, that the BLG composition should be able to walk through FPX quite easily if they've only lost 1 member on the pick. Likelihood is that FPX will expend a lot of cooldowns trying to take down 1 target, and then once those cooldowns are off, you can tell that BLG should be looking to walk forward, try and find those fights in the same time frame. 2 minutes on the next Dragon though, Raafaa, and already you can see a little bit of stability walking down to this bot side here for BLG as they attempt to secure some Scuttle Crabs, maybe look to try and take away some of the lingering vision that FPX already have down here.
Yeah, just using the overall priority that Finn's Jace is giving, thanks to that 1-item spike on the Yumus and the tier stacking up, whereas Sheer is still trying to just figure out whether he wants to get tier 2 boots, and oh boy, yeah, that's some nice Finn Jace damage right there. Sheer is going to have to respect that one as Care and Jwei are in the area, trying to threaten, but Shadow is here for the recover.
yeah, really good protection here by BLG, just making sure that their top laner is nice and safe. I mean, Bin so far not necessarily had the most standout. We have a bit of a heater. He's already 0-2, 20 CS up over his opponent, 1k gold up over his opponent, and has a sizable enough experience lead for me to be quite confident that he can take over this game. We've seen it from Bin so many times before, and I think that Alex just yesterday when showing off and giving Bin's credit for his great Gwen performance, sort of highlighted that at a certain point, Bin will just carry you, and that for the majority of 2024, the reason that we saw BLG find success was that they would reach 20, 25, 30 minutes, and then Bin would just turn into Giga Bin. He would come into team fights, regardless of him being 0-4 or 4-0, and he'd just start to slaughter people.
Yeah. And Giga Bin right now has a teleport at hand while he is pushing out this wave. Care had just used his teleport to get priority on that top wave push, so it seems like FPX have already marked the Rift Herald as their objective that they want to contest for and try and take away before BLG can get in range to strike back.
And again, this is a composition for FPX that picks very well, so by making BLG walk into them, it gives them that opportunity to see whichever target that they want and try to pick them off. Unfortunately, BLG, with its 2k gold lead, they command quite a lot of the space as well and can push people quite far back just on presence alone. This is a good flank angle for the Aurora, but there's a pink ward in the red buff bush that will spot him out if he steps too far forward.
He's just going to hop over the Rift Herald pit, trying to see if he can threaten Shadow that way, but Jwei got caught by On's Braum. The Rift Herald is secured by Pear, out of all people, and he's going to get out thanks to the Between Worlds hop. I guess no one in the end is going to be able to take the eye from the Rift Herald, but at least it's a denial away from BLG.
Yeah, now there may be more though here, Raafaa. You can see Care sneaks in, takes the eye, but BLG, they've taken the blue and they want more.
Care doesn't really have any more big spells left. He's just going to go for a full burst combo, but jumping into the face
Double
of
flash.
all three BLG members might have been a little ill-fated, and Care will toss his advantage away, trying to create something for the rest of FPX members, but IYY can't really get in there, forced to use the Cyclone just as a retreat method, and he dies anyway to Elk on the escape route, just getting gunned down in the streets, and Elk just really showing the power of dual blickies there.
Yeah, I mean, that is a relentless pursuit if I ever saw one. He dashed forward about 4 times in this team fight and did not care for the consequences. He comes out of it full HP, full mana, and with a kill to boot. BLG again continuing to snowball this game, and now 4,000 gold lead that is continuing to balloon. You say Jwei got caught? Jwei thought he found Knight. Unfortunately, Knight buffered the Tibbers down and made it impossible for JiaQi to follow through on any of that. And yes, we get to see Care take the fight, nicely done, takes the Herald, but he's used his ulti there to get out of the pit, which means that this flank is very underwhelming. He comes through, uses a couple of basic spells, and BLG just immediately respond to the Aurora by flashing on top of her. Flash from Shadow for the knockup, on as well, trying to get in range, and then we see Elk, who's just free firing this entire time, hops forward and just barely unable to get away is IYY, but for BLG, it's yet another instance of them coming out on top.
Yeah, that flank was fake as frick, bro.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna cap there. Care, he did everything that he needed to. There's no need to force the issue any further, and just got a little ahead of himself on that one. FPX now trying to struggle in reclaiming control in this red side quadrant, as BLG have already done the damage necessary by taking out the second dragon of the game. So there's not much else to contest for unless FPX just want to be able to get access to those upcoming cams. Sheer on the left side, trying to see if they can play for a flank angle here, but it doesn't really seem that anything is going to be good here. It's a 5,000 gold advantage, and that culling is reflecting the power of some of that 5k gold advantage as BLG just takes an absolute dampening out of Jwei's health bar.
Yeah, half HP now on the Nautilus, and constantly getting lower and lower, knocked up by the Glacial Fissure. There's no follow-up, though. They don't want to step just too far forward to commit onto a Nautilus, who can immediately CC them. But what they will do is commit very happily onto a tier 2 turret if they've got an opportunity to take some space and hit it. Fortunately enough for FPX, there's a slightly bigger prize at stake for BLG, that being the tier 1 turret on the top side. It's lower risk, much easier for them to pick up for themselves, and in this stage of the game. BLG just need to find whatever gold they can, continue to build out that gold lead, and then attempt to push that advantage even more. Care, potentially the focus down on this bot side. We're seeing IYY look to make a sneaky play down in the bot lane and might be able to find Knight once again.
Knight overextend for this one. He has a flash available, is careful to not over push into no man's land where maybe the tools at IYY and Care's disposal would have been enough. Even if Knight had tried to flash away, they could have followed up and guaranteed a kill, which would have been very much needed since they are down 6,000, 7,000 gold at this stage of the game. As BLG continues to take havoc and completely pillage all the resources in FPX's jungle.
And this is just a really clinical way of getting yourself a bigger advantage, right? Like what we talk about so frequently is what happens when the turrets go down. It's you take the enemy jungle, and looks like Jwei may be even one of those camps.
I mean, good depth charge into the Cyclone, but instantly punted away by the Crescent Guard. Can Care find a good flank here? None of the members that are important and vital to BLG have been damaged, and Elk with the calling just pushes them all back. So can Care really look for something? And he says, yeah, this is not happening. And no!
Oh!
And then you wave, and anti-stun puts a stop to his
TP.
escape tracks. He's going to try to look for the TP, but Ben just bashes him over the head with the giant hammer, and FPX are just losing more than they needed to.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, for Care, like, I can see his perspective, right? This game doesn't get much better as you move later on, so you've got to try and make those plays. But unfortunately, BLG are just wise to it. They just know what's coming, and they're able to thwart it. Now, JiaQi underneath this tier 2 turret, I don't know that he knows that there are so many people lurking, trying to make him regret being here.
Oh, good side step.
Flash.
Did you really want to throw out the question mark emote? Well, I guess it comes at the cost of his flash. BLG are just running away with the game again here, Rude. And I don't know if we're going to see a mishap happen again, just like the one we saw in game 1, where FPX were able to pull a little bit of a creative miracle and make BLG look silly for a little bit. This time around, it looks like BLG are way more focused and very persistent and just locked in on ensuring that this can be as clean of a finish as possible.
We'd hope, right? Like, we definitely hope so, that they can shore up some of those issues that we saw from them in game number 1. And yes, it was only like a 2-minute relapse that they struggled with, but those are 2 minutes that better teams will make you regret. FPX, maybe not one of those higher tier teams that we're looking at. And again, to remind people of the expectations of this series, FPX probably expected to lose this series 2-0. BLG, having beaten our reigning LPL champions just yesterday, expected to come out and kind of slaughter this series 2-0. So far we are not surprised by this, but we are just meeting expectation. And I think that importantly, again, to sing the praises of Shadow, a player who formerly was on this FPX roster just last split, in split number 2, made such a good impression that BLG, a team plagued by jungle inconsistencies and plagued by jungle woes, they decided, this is the player that we want. This is who we want to bring into our roster. They tried it with Beituan from Thunder Talk. They said, no, actually, this isn't working. Now they bring in Shadow, who in game number 1 earned an MVP. In game number 3 versus Anyone's Legend and Tarzan yesterday earned an MVP. This is now Shadow once again having a very solid performance in a series that maybe is more expected, but one that BLG can take home and be very confident in that they are making better choices.
And I remember all of the pre-AL BLG series community talks about how good is Shadow actually going to be for BLG. I was in the camp of, I don't know how much more consistent or how much better he is going to realistically be over Beituan. To me, it seems at best, you know, a slight upgrade, if not most likely a side grade. But Shadow has been performing, and he has been showing up big for BLG, not only in their most important series against AL yesterday and being able to hand them their first series loss in quite some time in this 2025 season, but also continuing to put out strong performances now against a team that, yes, like you said, they're expected to win, but still a dominant and a confident one nonetheless. And this should be the Otacon secured for free by BLG.
And I will say, looking back at FPX with Shadow, some of the wins that they got in split number 2, they take a series off of AL, they took a series off of BLG. like, this is a matchup or a player at the very least who was capable of doing very, very impressive things in the LPL, and I think that, you know, if Shadow now joining BLG has already proven that he can take series away from the top dogs, away from anyone's legend, and I do think that, as is the trend with regular season, we need to see what happens when teams play top and see how well that ends up boding for them, because that tends to be the regular season litmus test as to whether or not you are a top team or just having a little bit of a struggle. There's now IYY deciding he wants to fight, actually. Gets exhausted.
IYY might have thought that they had the numbers advantage since it's all 5 members here and only 2 showing. Shadow might be caught out. Crescent Guard delays the fight a little bit. Care gets a big shutdown bounty, and Between Worlds will at least end On's life. Ben now under fire as JiaQi goes for the chase with the killer instinct, but here comes Elk. That's the big daddy in Lucian. Now with the dual blick, he's looking to gun him down with the culling. Pew, 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 goes down 2 in an instant. BLG will continue to assert their dominance in this game, as now Care will throw out a couple emails as a plea for maybe some mercy, but there is no mercy in this dojo in the house of BLG. Knight will smite out his mid lane opponent, and BLG will continue to crash this minion wave into the base of FPX.
I was about to say it's giving a little bit of deja vu here. We hit the Atacon timer, and maybe there's a couple of issues for Elk there, ready to rescue this series, or rescue this game at the very least, and that fight in particular. You can see as well Shadow having a little bit of fun down on the player cams. You know, he knows that was a little bit int, a little bit grief, and hopefully we get a replay to show you some of those intricacies as BLG just continue really to push the advantage and make sure that they are not going to have any of those game 1 blunders reappear in game number 2, as now Jwei potentially just dead.
Yeah, he's gonna spider knot his way away.
Oh, and another one. But a donation.
Oh no, the teleport coming in. I mean, IYY is here, but does he really want to try and salvage here? He just died again. It's like game 1 when he teleported in with the rumble, and as soon as he popped in, he's like, it just gets deleted off the face of the rift, and BLG are gonna be very, very grateful to just accept 2 free kills from the side of FPX, and now a 3-man squad gonna try to do their best. Yeah, I mean, it should be Baron time for BLG, and FPX are gonna do what they can for a Hail Mary, but I don't expect it to end well.
No, I do love this build for the Lucian. Trying to take down the Baron has now been maybe the focus.
Then maybe the sacrificial lamb here does flash over the wall. JiaQi commits with the killer instinct.
One more
auto attack. It's the flash. It's an 1100 gold bounty, but Knight with the flash W. There, he lands it this time. And now JiaQi throwing up the question mark emote once again. This time he should be able to make his grand escape. No flash available, no problem. The rest of BLG do not have what it takes as On gets sucked in. Okay, guys, we gotta be careful here. Thankfully, the unbreakable shield is just BS. And Cubby, that is why Braum is getting his armor nerfed again. This shield is ridiculous.
Hey man, that was a combination of things there. On, yes, Unbreakable came up, but also used the locket. Also got a Molten Shield from Knight as well. So there were a couple of extra little spicy pieces there that I don't think that FPX had quite accounted for. And for On, you know, he's able to get out to safety there. Maybe in a situation where he shouldn't have done. But this is now BLG with the Baron at their backs with a 10,000 gold lead and with pretty much every single advantage that you could conceivably think of. Their soul for Infernal spawns in 15 seconds. They have a 6-kill Lucian who hasn't died yet. Knight has a Medjai's with 18 stacks on it. Like, this game is just already over, and BLG have done such a good job at snowballing it, but doing it at a pace that is methodical and that makes sense. As FPX look to get into the pit, the Drake's already gone, and I think that wisely they recognise, well, we'll not do POV LPL esports, where we watch them take the Drake and then fight for zero reason afterwards, but Shadow may be looking to force a fight on his own terms.
I would hope so. They are 11,000 gold ahead. They should be able to just force any fight. As long as they have all numbers there, it is winning every single time. Unless they just mess up and, I don't know, their hands get crippled or something. But I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Care is looking for a flank here on the right side. Gets spotted by that control ward, and they're already trying to turn the heat up on the IYY. They drop Jwei in an instant. Elk, I think, just did it all by himself. And yeah, good night, Care. Gets deleted from the Rift, and FPX now down to 3 members once again to try and make the impossible happen, which more than likely not going to be the case here. BLG just going to continue trucking on forward, taking out this inhibitor on the bottom side of the map. And look at the Unbreakable Shield, so much value No damage coming in from FPX whatsoever.
One inhibitor down in the bot side. Final fight from FPX.
Flash Cyclone. Okay, Elk is eviscerated by Sheer with the needlework and the snip, 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 but still BLG remains strong with the remaining 4 members. And just like that, as we predicted, we thought it was going to be very dominant coming out for BLG, and the story did unfold just like that. BLG will sweep FPX 2-0.
Yeah, and honestly, a series... It's just another one in the books. Should just be the business as usual for them, and they've done exactly that. Get to do their victory lap as well, and you know, shake the hands, do the fist bumps, do the well played, the GGs. But for BLG, it was business as usual. A series that they were expected to 2-0, and also in this fashion as well. So. Expected outcome here for BLG, but again, it definitely helps because so frequently in the LPL we talk of consistency and we talk of the issues that these teams face, and this would have been a very, I would say, iconic LPL moment for BLG to just randomly lose this game in the series, or to maybe lose the series as a whole.
Would have been an absolute cinema moment for sure. And you know, Rood, sometimes when we cast together, we tend to get those moments. We tend to get those series where the most unexpected things happen, and I was definitely putting a little bit of stake in the cards for an FPX upset game win. I was not expecting a full series win, but, you know, when I saw Care get the reverse solo kill on a Knight after being forced off of his flash, I thought, okay, maybe there's a chance here. But then some of the decisions that FPX overall made as a team were very puzzling, and also reminded us why they're in this position in the first place, why we suspect them, NWE, of being in danger of having to face a very prominent, very strong looking EDG roster sitting at first place in Group Nirvana right now, and more than likely going to be taking that Group Nirvana first seed into the play-ins for the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, the way EDG have been playing, there's a very real possibility that the matchup between FPX and WE ends up deciding who it is that faces EDG, and you know, I do think that the series there could end up with EDG making it into playoffs, which would be, you know, a really good little boost for them as well after what was, you know, a pretty rough 2025, and honestly has been a pretty rough couple of years for the organization.
It's been tough, Rood. Looking back at the series, though, we gotta give praises over to BLG once again. Shadow, I don't know how many of us here on the broadcast team was apprehensive and hesitant to be excited about this jungle change, just because we have seen so many jungle changes from BLG over the past few months. This is now the 3rd new jungler of 2025, the 3rd new jungler since the departure of Shun from the roster. Jwei, Beichuan, now Shadow. And, you know, our questions are always going to be, okay, BLG, because this is now your newest option, at what point are you going to get tired of, you know, Shadow and say, I don't want to play with you anymore, and toss him aside like Andy did in Toy Story 2. So, but right now, Shadow is making a strong argument of not to be tossed aside right now. He is doing everything that BLG wants him to do. He's putting out strong early game performances, and I hope to Shadow as an individual, as someone that has, you know, an aspiring pro career to remain at the top of the table as long as possible, I hope that he can continue that, so that he doesn't get canned by BLG when they seemingly eventually get unsatisfied with their jungler.
Yeah, and I do think as well that I'm, you know, from, you know, back in the days where Shadow was in the EU LCS, right? Like he was on a Mad Lions roster, Splice roster, maybe at some stage before, and then he's moved over to the LPL. I was hoping to see him and, you know, see, oh, one of the EU's representatives could go over and do great things in the LPL, and now finally it looks like he's actually landing himself on a roster where those types of things might actually be possible, and it will be great to see Shadow, if BLG make it to an international event with Shadow at the jungle role. You know, I can already think of the stories and the narratives. Oh, you remember the name Shadow? Yeah, all the way back from when you saw him play, you know, 2020 on this EU team. So it should just be a great story if BLG can make it all that way.
Yeah. Finally got a chance to look at some of the post-match graphics, looking at the damage chart and the overall gold difference across the pace of the game. Yeah, Bin was doing work on this Jace. Obviously got a nice little bit of a boost and set up early on, thanks to how proactive they made the lane swaps, as well as the kind of the botched invade from IYY trying to catch Shadow unaware, which then eventually led into Shadow ganking and putting Sheer into the dumpster. And from then on, I'm just looking now at MVP candidates. Everyone played a pretty solid game. I could see it going to Shadow just because he was setting it up, but Elk, yeah, Elk is probably my forerunner just because he was so damn clean on the Lucian.
Yeah, and I think that Shadow as well had a couple of oopsies, and you know, they weren't necessarily game altering, but they were perchance a little bit too overzealous, let's say, in certain situations. But I think that Elk, for the most part, played a very clean game on the Lucian, was pretty instrumental in finding picks before those objectives actually started. So that would be my vote. You can definitely see already that FPX are, in these highlights at the very least, not willing to have gone down without a fight, but that BLG just pretty much had an answer for every single punch that they tried to throw.
I think this is very funny, Rood. I got a message from Cubby finding out, it's like, hey, by the way, this Braum angle looked pretty darn good. I'm like, yeah, well, would you believe that they picked it second, like our second in the draft? And he's like, wait, R2 Braum is so illegal. How did that happen? And I'm like, I don't know, man. You have to take it up with the FPX coach of not being able to punish. We said it on cast. We talked about how this is a very early Braum pick. You know, you might want to try and not play Ultra Dive and make the Braum's life easier, but FPX said, yeah, how about we still continue our Ultra Dive strategy? And well, lo and behold, Rood, it did not pan out.
Yeah, well, we talked about the answers that you can give to Braum, and for some reason, Nautilus didn't crop up in that. And yeah, we ended up seeing that the Nautilus, not quite the answer to the Braum that maybe FPX thought that it would be. You know, they teased us with the Bard a little bit. I was like, hey, you know what? You could go Bard here, but they'd already locked in the Kai'Sa, and that kind of felt like they'd be doing the Kai'Sa a disservice if that was the option. But, you know, I'm looking here at how FPX found themselves in this position, and really reasons why I'm looking for Elk to be, you know, MVP for this game. I mean, this is the one fight that I think he dies in, where he gets double cycloned on, and the rest of his team are quite happy to mop up the rest of the pieces. But we got a nice little POV as well, as he was just absolutely destroying people with the ulti a couple of times. So we'll get to see whether or not he was or wasn't the MVP. That usually flashes quite quickly up afterwards.
Yeah. Elk, Shadow, maybe Bin. I don't want to take too many points away from Knight, but him missing the flash W stun on Care and then getting reverse solo bullet, I can't see him getting the MVP after that. There it is.
Okay.
Boom. We did our job.
I just know. I'm just familiar, you know. I've got their game on lock. It took me a split to calibrate, but since split 2, I feel like I've been able to deduce where they're going with it.
Understandable, and fair play. Always love to see some clean and amazing S-tier Lucian gameplay from some of our best marksmen here in the LPL. But that, folks, does conclude our first series, wrapped up in the books very nicely by BLG. We got one more series coming your way. It's going to be Anyone's Legend trying to look for some revenge and rebound after their loss against BLG against Jwei Gaming. Stick around. We'll be right back.